You know, in music, there are icons, there are legends, and then there is Prince. He was an artist so singular, so completely revolutionary, that he didn't just make music, he pretty much created his own universe. So today, we are diving deep into the story of the Purple One, an artist who just refused to fit into any category, and in doing so, changed the game forever. See, Prince wasn't just a performer, he was a literal force of nature. He pioneered what we now call the Minneapolis sound. And if you're not familiar, just picture it like this, a sonic gumbo. He'd take the tight, punchy rhythms of funk, throw in the raw energy of a rock guitar solo, add the slick, futuristic sound of pop synthesizers, and then tie it all together with the deep soul of R&B. He was a one-man architect of sound, and honestly, his blueprint changed everything. And let me tell you, the world was listening. He sold over 100 million records all over the globe, which makes him one of the best-selling artists in music history. But for Prince, the numbers, they were just a side effect of his relentless and, frankly, kind of staggering creative drive. Okay, now this slide right here, this captures a moment that had never happened before and has rarely happened since. In the summer of 1984, Prince became the very first singer in history to have the #1 film, the #1 album, and the #1 single in the US all at the same time. I mean, that's not just a career peak, that is total cultural domination. A moment like that doesn't just happen out of nowhere, right? It's the result of a life's work, a totally unique vision, and a talent that was, well, almost superhuman. So to really get the whole story behind the reign of Purple Rain, we've got to go back to the beginning. All right, let's rewind the clock. We're going back to Minneapolis, where a young musical prodigy was quietly getting ready to take over the world. He was born Prince Rogers Nelson. He was actually named after his father's stage name, Prince Rogers. So you could say music was literally in his blood. He grew up in a house just filled with the sounds of jazz and soul. That was basically his first classroom. Now think about that for a second. At 7 years old, while most of us were, I don't know, learning to ride a bike, a 7-year-old Prince was composing. He taught himself piano, then guitar, then drums, then bass. This wasn't just a hobby for him, it was a calling, something he was born to do. By the time he was a teenager, he was a total virtuoso. And, of course, the industry noticed. At just 18 years old, he signed a deal with Warner Brothers that was just unheard of for a new artist. He actually demanded and got complete creative control over his first 3 albums. Right from the start, he was not going to be anyone's puppet. And this right here, this is why he needed that control. His debut album, For You, wasn't a band effort. Nope. It was a Prince effort, through and through. All 27 instruments you hear on that record, that's all him. And that wasn't arrogance. It was just the fastest way for him to get the symphony that was constantly playing in his head out into the world. So, with that foundation set, Prince began this climb to the top that was as audacious as it was brilliant, and it all led to his masterpiece. So let's look at how he built up to that moment. In the early 80s, you have albums like Dirty Mind, Controversy, and then the huge breakthrough 1999. These records really established his sound. He was blending the grit of funk with the polish of new wave synthpop, and man, he was not afraid to be provocative. His lyrics definitely stirred up some controversy, but his music, especially the video for Little Red Corvette, helped force MTV to finally start playing black artists. And then came Purple Rain. It was a huge gamble, a semi-autobiographical movie starring a musician who wasn't exactly a household name yet. But wow, did it pay off. The movie was a blockbuster, the soundtrack is an all-time classic, and Prince even won an Oscar. He wasn't just a star anymore, he was a global phenomenon. But here's the thing about Prince. He never, ever played it safe. His follow-up film, Under the Cherry Moon, which he directed himself, was a critical and commercial flop. I mean, where Purple Rain won an Oscar, this movie won a Razzie. It's a perfect example of his absolute fearlessness, his commitment to his own artistic vision, for better or for worse. And that same artistic integrity, that need to follow his own path, would soon lead him into the biggest fight of his entire career. Not for fame, not for money, but for freedom. By the early 90s, Prince felt totally trapped. He was creating music way faster than his label, Warner Bros., was willing to release it. He started to see his record contract not as a partnership, but as a form of ownership. So to protest, he made this incredibly powerful and, controversial public statement. But his protest didn't stop there. Not even close. In a move that just stunned the entire music world, he decided to abandon the very name that had made him famous. He adopted this unpronounceable symbol, a combination of the signs for male and female, as his new name. His argument was that Warner Bros. Owned the name Prince, but the artist, his actual soul, that was his and his alone. I mean, the media and the public were completely baffled. How do you even refer to someone whose name you can't say? So they settled on the artist formerly known as Prince. It was a clunky name, for sure, but it perfectly captured that strange, rebellious chapter of his career. And then, on May 16th, 2000, the war was over. His contract was up, and he was finally free. He reclaimed his birth name, having made his point in probably the most dramatic way imaginable. You know, that fight for freedom is so central to understanding his legacy. It wasn't just about record contracts, it was about the art itself. And the sheer volume and influence of that art, it's just staggering. Just let this number sink in for a minute. 39. He officially released 39 studio albums in his lifetime. That is nearly an album a year for his entire career. This wasn't a job for him. It was just a constant, relentless flow of creation, a work ethic and a creative wellspring that is almost impossible to wrap your head around. And you know what the wildest part is? That's just the music he chose to release. He left behind the now legendary vaults at Paisley Park, a place holding, potentially, thousands of hours of unreleased songs, concert films, you name it. It's a testament to an artist for whom creating music was as essential as breathing. It's a gift that's going to keep unfolding for decades to come. His sudden death in 2016 from an accidental overdose was a shock that was felt all around the world. Landmarks were lit purple, and millions of people mourned the loss of a true original, an artist who really taught us that the greatest freedom you can have is the freedom to be yourself. And that leaves us with one final thought. In today's music industry, which is so driven by social media trends and streaming algorithms, could an artist so fiercely independent, so mysterious, and so uncompromisingly unique actually thrive? It's really something to think about.